Dusk had been looking forward to the next meeting of the songwriting group all week. Now it had finally arrived, and there was a bit of chill in the air as Dusk got out of the soccer mom van and headed for the center of the park. But the wind was just slight enough the burst of cool actually felt nice on Dusk's face. It appeared Dusk was the last one of the group to show up. She figured it would happen though, since Foreign had needed the soccer mom van to go to the arcade and played her favorite Wizard of Oz game. As per usual, Foreign got lost in her thoughts while playing the game. As a result, just got back a few minutes later than she would. "Hey, Dusk," Dawn waved, momentarily pausing the conversation with the others. "Hi," Dusk returned with the wave. "So what's the plan for tonight's meeting?" "If you're asking, we have an agenda. We're not formal here," Dawn chuckled. "Although ironically, we're just talking about doing a group outing. We've done those a couple of times and everyone's liked them." "Yeah, what would you think of going to Salem next Friday?" Kelsey asked Dusk. Dusk shuddered a bit. If she were being honest, her first experience at Salem was with the theater owner who frantically took advantage of them and didn't exactly want to make her go back. However, she did want to see immerse herself in even further with the new group of friends, so she didn't want to say no. That'd be cool. Dusk had to pause for a moment to remember if this happened in the timeline that didn't get erased, but she quickly remembered that it did. "I actually thought there was recently to do a show for the band." "Oh, neat. What do you think?" Ava inquired. Dusk debated about cleaning it up and saying it was a nice experience, but she quickly changed her mind as she remembered the group's speak your mind mentality. "Honestly, I hated it. The theater owner ripped their asses off and made us pay them $135 because we didn't sell enough tickets, quote unquote. That dude was a bitcher turf bastard." "Yeah," Dayton let out a hearty chuckle. "I love that you speak your mind, girl. You fit well in here." "Dayton's so right," Dawn agreed. "I feel like that many bands would just play nice and not say anything. But I think it's awesome that you're not afraid to speak out against the assholes of the world." "Thanks. I still go, though," Dusk said. "That one asshole wasn't representative of the whole city. I was just a teenager a few times doing one of those walking tours, and it was pretty nice." "Oh, I hear that they got great things about walking tours. We should do one together," Kelsey suggested. "Let's do it," Brett said. "I could drive for 4 of us. Who wants to drive the other 3? "I could do it," Dusk offered, perhaps being the kind and offering the drive and wouldn't interrogate her to move into the group. "Awesome, thanks, Dusk," Brett appreciated. "Sounds like a lot of fun. I should probably head out early if I want to be up in the morning to coordinate everything and get tickets," Dawn realized. "I'm super excited for the tour, though." Dusk was very excited for this trip as well. Beyond driving around Oakhaven, embarking on how non-existent tour, Foreign, Dusk, and Luna had never done too much traveling, so the idea of going on a day trip with some new friends was incredibly appealing to her. She was amazed to seem to be upcoming such fast friends with these people, and was thankful that she had met them. The girls had been talking about their music video off and on ever since their meeting with Gus the prior week. They decided on being themed around a protest, but they had to keep on facing a nasty case of creativity block for an entire week. They had gone to their meeting with Gus and this week completely unprepared. Not only that they had tried, but it felt like an inspiration was rare for the commodity this week, for whatever reason. They were currently walking through the hallway leading to Gus's office. I'm so frustrated. We can't even think of an idea," Luna laminated. Maybe the timeline changing our mind brains turned to mush in the process. "Yeah, we used to be able to come up with ideas easily, but now it's taking us forever to come up with anything," Dusk sighed. "I don't think it's that," Thorn laughed. "Hexker was a pretty generic song, but I feel like Earth, Wind, Fire, and Air was a lot deeper than it looks on the surface. It's giving our fans a first look of our artistic identity and what we care about as a band. So I do think it's as important to make sure that we're showing the part of ourselves off in a careful way." "I guess so, but why does it have to be so fucking long?" Dusk said, trying to be humorous through her frustration. She lightly rapped around on Gus's door as she promptly opened it. "Hello, girls," Gus greeted with a smile as she headed to sit down at the office chair. "How's the music video been coming?" "It isn't," Dusk said with a droll laugh. "We've had writer's block all week and it's just been terrible. We just can't find the right way to present this protest," Thorn explained. "Everything we think of is too similar to our first video, where we're challenging you," Luna pointed out. "We almost needed a different angle, but I don't know how we do that, since we kind of have to challenge somebody if we're going to have the music video take place at a protest. We need a metaphorical representation. Like, what if we don't necessarily show people protesting, and we could just show off the effects of doing reckless things to the environment first? Then afterwards we get upset and protest?" Thorn asked. "That's actually a good idea. I reinforce our message where we are passionate about the environment because we're dedicated to a curse, rather than just protesting because we're rebellious kids," Luna added. "That sounds like the idea of a start. Great, girls," Gus complimented. "Thanks for helping us come up with it," Thorn appreciated. "I didn't say a word. You girls are the ones that came up with the idea," Gus chuckled. "Oh yeah, I guess we did," Thorn laughed. "Just goes to show that sometimes your mind just needs a little break sometimes. When people put so much pressure on their minds to think of something rather quickly, it can become significantly harder for people to write, I guess," Gus said. "Also, I get this piece out of the news out of the way, if you can call it that. The only one station added your song this week, and it's currently on 136 on the charts. We need to get this video out soon," Dusk sighed. "Don't pressure yourself too much, or you'll put yourself right back in the land of writer's block," Gus cautioned the girls. "Perhaps do something to relax and unwind this weekend, and give yourself a few days off to return it on Monday. Your concept still is around it, like it needs a little development. But I think you've got the beginning of a great video here. Do you girls have any fun plans for the weekend?" "Not particularly," Thorn said. "Probably just going to the arcade, reading and sleeping in." "Same, minus the arcade. Maybe find a movie on TV," Luna said. "Dusk is going to Salem." "Yeah, a couple of my friends invited me to Salem for a walking tour," Dusk explained. "All that sounds perfect for unwinding. I bet if you give yourself a brief break, and you'll come back and be refreshed enough to flesh out the rest of the music video," Gus provided his insight. Dusk hoped he was right. It just felt like the music video had been taking forever, considering they shot the first video only a day after they come up with the idea. She was ready to have the video plan panned out so they could release it into the world and get the real idea whatever this single was going to do well or not. She was incredibly excited about the trip to Salem and hoped it was just the thing that she needed to relax enough to finish the music video and release it to the world. Dusk was feeling a little jittery and nervous as she put her makeup on and did her hair to prepare for her trip to Salem. Given that she hadn't hung out with her friends besides Thorn and Luna in years, she had no idea what to suspect. It felt a little surreal to her. Despite her anxiety, she was still excited to go to Salem. She couldn't imagine the trip would be as bad as it was the last time. "So we are the people coming here to drive the soccer mom van?" Luna wondered. "No, I'm driving over to Brett's, because everybody's mean over there. Brett's apartment apparently has gotten pretty big parking area that could accommodate a lot of guests and parking," Dusk explained. "It's still weird to me that you're going to Salem with a bunch of people you basically met 2 weeks ago," Thorn commented. "Then again, it's also weird for somebody our age to never see any friends outside of their roommates, which Luna and I haven't since high school. Yeah, it's pretty low-key. We're all just hanging out, and I don't think there's really any expectations. Besides, I'm starting to feel comfortable with just chilling with them," Dusk informed, before quickly grabbing her wallet off the counter when she saw the time was 12:38 on the oven. "Anyways, I gotta go." "See you later, Dusk," Thorn waved. "Don't stay out too late," Luna called after her. "God, Luna, I'm not in high school anymore. I can handle myself," Dusk laughed as she headed out the door. The autumn wind was practically gusty today, but Dusk was still happy with her decision to only wear a long red sleeve blouse without a jacket. She was pretty sure Dawn had said that Brett lived on Warren Street, or was it Walton Street? Dusk squinted at the street name, which was practically hidden behind a rather unwieldy tree branch. She couldn't tell what that sign said for a moment, but she promptly realized that the sign said Warren Street. She quickly slammed on the brakes, causing the person behind her to lay their horn and scream bloody murder out the window. "God, sorry!" Dusk snapped in her vehicle. She then turned to the apartment complex. The place looked exactly huge. It was towering over the building that had 3 floors, and it looked like at least 20 apartments on each floor. Given Dusk's apartment complex was just 12 people, it seemed wild to her that Brett's apartment building was much a large commune of people. Dusk quickly found a parking spot when she saw Dawn and the others waving her down, standing in the parking lot. "Hey, Dusk, ready to head out?" Dawn asked. "Yep, whoever wants to take my car, hop in," Dusk invited. She saw Dawn, Dayton, and Ava walked promptly towards a soccer mom van. Jonathan and Kelsey hopped in Brett's car, to which was a blue SUV. Ava got in the front seat while Dayton and Dawn took the back. "You own this van, Dusk?" Ava inquired. "Yeah, but it's technically mine, but Foreign and Luna and I share it. It's the only way we get around here," Dusk explained. "Wow, is it reliable?" Dayton asked. "It looks a bit clunkier." Dusk admittedly didn't quite appreciate the forward to Dayton, but perhaps it was some of Luna's oversensitivity have worn off on her. "It's surprisingly reliable. It only needs 1 repair in the at least past year." "Well, that's good to hear," Dawn exclaimed. "Anyway, you missed our conversation out in the parking lot, but I found a walking tour. It's called the Ghosts of Salem." "It's not the same hokey tour that is designed to make kids frightened of witches, is it?" Dusk sneered. She didn't want to go on some kiddie tour when they heard of fantasy stories about frightening witches and whatnot. "Oh God, no," Dawn assured. "But from the brochure, I found it practically leads people most around famous areas of Salem, including one called the Witch's House. There's a lot of witch trials took place." "That sounds like fun," Dusk smiled. "I hope so, given the price of $15 per person," Dayton remarked. "Everything is so freaking expensive." 15? Luckily, Dusk had brought 2 $20 bills in her wallet. It wouldn't leave her a whole lot left remaining spending money, but she would have to stretch it out as much as she could. Everyone else in the car was silent for a while. Unlike with her friends, the silence was a tad awkward, although it wasn't painful to sit through, given that Dusk had to focus on driving. Dusk didn't take the silence personal failure. 4 of them didn't know each other that well. And besides, Dawn knowing Dusk and Dayton, it was understandably difficult to come up with a conversation and topic that everyone would have interest in all 4 parties. "So how's your band doing, Dusk?" Ava asked. Dusk admittedly wasn't quite sure how to answer the question at the moment, since it felt like they were kind of a standstill until they planned out that music video. "It's going really well," Dusk replied. "We just released our first album, and we put it on a 2nd single." Dusk was going to add that they were working on a music video, but she remembered Foreign and Luna being frustrated that sharing info about the band was not public knowledge yet. They probably never know if she'd ever told Ava and Dayton, but given the amount of times that they bumped into Dawn in the past week, Dusk didn't want to risk adding that in case Dawn let it slip. "That's good. I like your performance at the Autumn Fest," Ava complimented. "Thanks," Dusk smiled. "Turn left here, Dusk," Dawn instructed, looking up from a sheet of paper. Dusk realized that Dawn must have written out the directions on how to get to the tour location. Quite frankly, Dusk was glad for the diversion since she wasn't sure what else to say to Ava, even though she seemed nice. Hopefully things would get less awkward for the group when got close, which would hopefully happen a bit during today's tour. "Mind if I turn on the radio?" Dusk immediately broke the silence. "Not at all," Ava assured. Dusk was experiencing a tad bit of anxiety from the awkwardness of traveling with 2 strangers and not talking to Dawn that much. She hoped that turning on some familiar music would perhaps calm her nerves. She flipped for the dial to the rock station, which seemed to be coming in loud and clear, despite them being nearly an hour away from home. Luckily for her, they were playing Kiss from Them For Me by Sowis and the Banshees, which was one of her favorite songs of all time. "Oh, I love this song," Ava chimed in. "Turn up a little bit, would you, Dusk?" Yeah, I prefer more modern stuff, Dayton remarked. Too old for me. Well, you're in luck because this song's nearly over, unfortunately, Dusk lamentated as she turned up the volume up a few notches. Gives number one for new music. A pre-recorded pre-station bumper shouted from the radio as the Southsea song began to fade out. This band just put up their new single following the release of their album, a nasally voiced male DJ announced. The first single cracked up to top 30, but it'll still be interesting to watch for the second one to do better. Earth, Wind, Fire, Hair by the Hex Girls is on KWZZ. Wow. Dusk's jaw nearly dropped to the floor when she heard the song. She knew a few stations were playing her song, and she had believed it was on competitorily hit radio stations, so she never expected to hear her song on here, especially since she was in the car. Hey, this is your song, Dawn exclaimed. Whoa, it's on the radio, Dayton said in amazement. Even though Dusk had heard the studio version before, somehow it sounded much better on the radio, likely because of the sense of accomplishment Dusk felt. It gave her a bit of burst of energy to hear the song on the radio, while she had no creativity pretty much all week. She now felt invigorated to tackle the music video when Monday rolled around. The path got to a tourist spot in Salem that was far too long and windy for Dusk's taste, but at least the scenery was pretty. Dusk drove up long, winding incline with the autumn-kissed trees all around. She saw lots of squirrels and chipmunks scurrying around the leaves that had fallen to the ground, and out of the corner of her eye, she saw a doe peeking out from the leaves to see if it was safe to cross the road. We must be getting close now, Dayton remarked. Yeah, we are. Just a few more turns, and then they're all coming up within the next minute, Dawn informed. You might want to make a right at this stop sign, Dusk. Got it, Dusk nodded, as she flipped on her signal. Where does the tour start? Apparently it starts at a place called the Witch's House. It was home of the many judges who were responsible for the prosecution of many witches during the Salem trials, Dawn explained. Oh God, maybe we could stubbornly wreck some stuff to punish this woman-hating ass from beyond the grave, Dayton sneered. I'm a museum, Dayton. It's a museum. I don't think they would look too favorably on you destroying things, Ava remarked. Besides, it's not a shrine to him. The museum is supposed to give you that somber look into that piece of history. Turn left on here at the next stop sign, Dusk, Dawn informed. Geez, how many more turns are there? Dusk snapped. We're going to make the car implode if we keep switching directions every 2 seconds. Of course, the soccer mom van was in no actual impeding of danger of blowing up. Rather, Dusk was just feeling impatient. She immediately felt bad for losing her temper over such a trivial matter. Just 2 more, including one in the next parking lot, Dawn answered. Without expressing any sort of emotion, it gave Dusk a bit of sense too, as she was thrown off by Dusk's outburst. Actually, your next turn is coming up at the end of the street, next to the stop sign. The turn was a bit more stressful for Dusk. It appeared that it was a relatively busy street, with multiple people crossing, but she didn't then speed up the limit sign, reading 15 miles per hour, meaning that she'll need to slow down a bit for the current 30 that she was going. Ah, Dusk said as she slammed hard on the brakes. She knew she was getting frustrated with the pedestrians wasn't in the right solution, as it wasn't their fault. But she did not do well under the stress. She quickly made the turn to the right, feeling frustrated with herself for getting worked out over something trivial. She then drove down the road near a suburban neighborhood, which calmed her down a bit. Something about the neighborhood was so quaint. No wild children were playing out in the street. No busy traffic like she had just encountered on the other roads. It was just peaceful and quiet. Thus promptly they saw the parking lot marked Witch House Parking, which she had figured to be at the right place. Your last turn's up ahead, Dawn pointed out. Thanks, Dusk appreciated, even though she was just about to turn into the lot anyway. She worried for the moment that perhaps she would be ticketed if she didn't park in the right place, but she didn't see any signs saying she couldn't. Did you see if there was anywhere in particular where you're supposed to park, Dawn? Dayton inquired. No, I imagine you can just park anywhere and they won't care. If they give us a ticket, we'll raise the hell about it not being a sign, Dawn threatened. Or we could just ask the tour guides when we get inside, Ava laughed. Yeah, I suppose, Dawn shrugged. Dusk eventually found a satisfactory spot in the parking lot, which was relatively small. One of the open spots that they could have just been blocked by some bozo who had parked in this truck over the line, effectively blocking the two spots. As the girls got out of the car, they saw their friends in Brett's vehicle parked nearby. They had found a spot next to the truck Dusk was lamenting about. On the other side, Dusk had to attempt to the park. Can you believe that, asshole? Dayton sneered, pointing at truck's wheels behind several inches over the line. No, I tried to park on the other side of him, until what I saw. What a jackass, Brett swore. He's probably just some gas-guzzling environment hater. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's one of those stupid oil pipe lovers. He's probably best friends with Mayor Corey. Dusk admittedly didn't mean that, but she figured dissing the mayor, whom they really hated, would give her extra points with these folks. Sure enough it did. Dawn began chuckling. Wizard Dayton let out a hearty guffaw. Brett and Kelsey quickly joined in on the fun and started laughing as well. Dusk quickly spun around when she heard the man shouting something. The ghost of Salem tour is over here. Anybody who wants to join the tour, follow me. I guess we're following him, Dawn commented. Dusk had the others join the group of 10 or so people, where they were walking behind the man, who quickly followed him down the sidewalk. They passed a number of businesses as they walked down the road, an antique shop, a mattress store, and a pesteurious-looking store, and a quirky-looking little mom-and-pop coffee shop. It's great to meet you all. My name is Dean, and I'll be your tour guide. So you folks over have been seeing these parks before? The tour guide asked. He was a stocky man wearing a blue jeans and a lime green t-shirt reading The Ghosts of Salem Tours. I have, Dusk replied. Nope, never have been, Dawn admitted. The rest of the group shook their heads as well, except for Ava, who nodded. A few people from the group who didn't know also nodded their heads. Welcome to Salem, of course. You guys are new. This tour allows you to see the famous witch house, but we will also visit 2 other haunted locations. We're just going to walk past this building and then turn right, and we'll be back at the house, Dean shared. We just had a quick question, Dusk said. We parked by that sign that says Witch's House Parking. Is that the right place to park? We better not get a ticket. There wasn't even a sign, Kelsey rebuked. No worries, ladies, Dean responded. You parked exactly in the right spot. Good. You might want to consider putting up a sign up, since it's pretty confusing on knowing where to park, Dawn pointed out. Thanks for the suggestion. I'll bring it up with my supervisor, Dean promised. Dusk immediately didn't see the need to be up in the man's arms, as they could have just followed their lead and asked him kindly if they parked in the right spot, but she quickly shrugged it off. Dusk took a look up at the hill and saw something more beautiful than she imagined. She assumed the witch's house would be some dinky, old, run-down house, but instead she saw a beautiful historic building. It was breathtaking and pretty spooky at the same time. The house looked very old-timey way and constructed, but it looked very well maintained by the city. The exterior was entirely dark blue painted wood, and there was a number of windows on the house, each pretty much of the window in various size, and some rectangular and others were more squarish. Some of the windows were tiny, that they almost looked like little peepholes, which added the creep factor, but not in a good way. Alright everyone, this is the house, Dean pointed, as soon as they arrived at the destination, clearly marked Witch House. As you may be aware, this house is of Jonathan Corwin, who was one of the main judges responsible for the Salem witch trials. You'll want to look at the house outside from the angles to see a fascinating way as constructed. Dusk glanced cheerfully at the exterior of the place and saw exactly who the man was talking about. She had been looking at the house from the side, but not from the front. The house almost looked like it was some sort of Suzanne creation of the 3 tiny houses in one. The house's roof was quite jagged, and the 3 different triangular peaks accentuating the roof line. Each of the house's 3 levels were divided clearly by the lines in the siding, and upon closer inspection, it appeared to be siding for at least a level was intended on a tad for outside. Dusk was aware in awe of how complicated the building was. Such a magnificent house could have been. "It's beautiful," Dusk commented as the tour guide led them for the house. "I agree. It's been there since the 1600s, although technically it was moved about 40 feet from when this place where the road had to be widened." Dean pointed out to the road next to the sidewalk. "You mean they moved this thing and it didn't fall apart?" Dusk gasped. "Well, they had to do some minor renovations over time, but it stayed up for pretty much all these years," Dean revealed. "Whenever you're ready, we can head inside." The group all headed inside the witch house. All of them were too busy admiring the surroundings to say much. When Dusk got inside, she was awestruck by what she had saw. She saw the house was furnished, and it was just when Jonathan Crowland lived there. There was a wooden dining room and a single chair, which had been set by some fine china. A basket of fruit adorned in the center of the table. On the other side of the room, there was a large fireplace filled with some fake wood, several chimney brushes, and there was a large metal bucket. There were various pieces in incense hanging above from the fireplace, as well as a fake pumpkin placed in the fireplace to give it more of a Halloweenish feel. It amazed Dusk how people used to live like this, and it made Dusk feel quite humble just thinking about the modern amenities she had. "This is where Jonathan's dining room and living space is," Dean informed. "This is where he spent most of his outside of work." "This place is cool," Dayton exclaimed, looking in awe. She walked over to take a look at the place. "Whenever you're ready, I can also show you Jonathan's bedchamber upstairs," Dean invited. It felt like there was so much to take in that Dusk couldn't decide whether or not to look around a little more before going upstairs. She was never for one lingering around the museums, but it was fascinating to her that a few people lived hundreds of years ago. But after a bit of looking around, Dusk noticed that Dean and a few other people were heading upstairs. "The rest of y'all can come upstairs whenever you're ready," Dean informed everyone. Dusk decided to follow them upstairs so she could see the bedchamber. And as she walked up to the wooden stairs, they creaked a bit. Dusk was pretty positive that they would never allow tours on the second floor if there were any chances of the stairs giving out. But the worry still lingered in the back of her mind as the remainder of her trek upstairs. When Dusk got up to the top of the stairs, the first thing she saw was an old rickety-looking bed made out of wood, complete with ghastly and white bed curtains. There was a dream-maker's dummy next to it, adorned with clothes which Dusk assumed that it was put there by somebody recently. There were two looking that to be associated with the house's 17th century owners. As you folks are looking around, I want to provide a couple of pieces of history of this house. This is the only house still standing in Salem that has direct ties to witch trials, Dean informed. "Wow, really? That's wild," Dawn gasped. Dusk spun around to see that Dawn and Dayton had just ascended upstairs. "This house is known for the Corin curse, which claimed most of the children in the house. Jonathan and his wife had 5 children, but 4 of them mysteriously died by the age of 1. The 5th one escaped the curse, at least for a while. When she was 19, she mysteriously passed away too." "Wow, how terrifying," one of the women in the tour group gasped. "It gets even worse," Dean obnoxiously said. "The Cohens had a 6th child, who ended up taking care of his parents when they were too old. However, when he took the house, both him and his wife became very sick, and both died as well in 1718. Many people believe the Cohen house claimed them too. Do we know if there is a big being behind this curse, or was it just the universe righting itself?" Ava wondered. "Well, people believe both, but I will say that when they were renovating the place in the 1940s, construction workers claimed to feel a chill in the air, and mysterious voices were calling to them," Dean explained. "That's so freaky," Kelsey gasped. "If you look over there, you could see the replicas of the actual documents used to prosecute the accused witches." Dean pointed to a glass adjacent to the bed. Dusk walked over to the case to glance at the documents and stood next to Dawn, who was also inspecting the documents. "Damn, it makes me so angry to think that this piece of paper killed so many women," Dawn sneered. Dawn's thought was quite a wild phrase, while compelling Dusk. It was infuriating that mere pieces of parchment could justify in killing so many innocent people. A big-toed person like Jonathan Corwin didn't deserve to die in a beautiful house like this. A person with ideas like that only deserved to live in a hovel, or better yet, the dumpster. That's the extent of the house. Now this tour is only scheduled for 2 hours and we've got 2 other destinations to see. So we gotta get moving for our next destination, Dean informed. Follow me downstairs, folks. The house was so atmospheric that Dusk didn't even almost want to leave the place quite yet, until she reminded herself that there were exciting adventures ahead at the other haunted locations in Salem. Dusk waited for a moment so she could walk next to Dawn, Dayton, and Ava. The others from their group, Brett, Kelsey, and Jonathan, quickly joined them. "That's wicked," Brett exclaimed. "I can't believe anyone would live like that," Kelsey said. "I would be so bored. What the hell were you even supposed to do here, other than stare at walls?" Dusk admittedly thought Kelsey's comment took shallow to a new level, as obvious as the 17th century people weren't going to have TVs and CDs to listen to like they did in modern times. "Where are we headed next?" Dawn inquired, looking at the tour guide. "Our next stop is Old Town Hall. It was originally called the Great Hall, but the name of it was changed in 1837. The city assured the townsfolk that the old town isn't just a haunted one, but some of the workers have claimed that they've heard ghastly voices at night," Dean revealed. "Just seems like okay then, in the sense that people are working for the city aren't telling their citizens the truth," Dayton dissed. Dusk admittedly didn't understand Dayton's anger towards the city employees. She understood perhaps taking a little peeved about Mayor Corey in the pipeline, but trying to bash out all the people for working the city seemed a bit too far for her. Nevertheless, she figured maybe it was just a personal quirk and decided to move on. The tour guide apparently thought the same, but as he continued to share history tidbits without acknowledging Dayton's remark, "Legend has it that the old city hall is haunted by a poltergeist. Most of the old city workers reported hearing strange voices through the halls, and even there were a few times objects were moved unexpectedly." "Wow," Dusk heard somebody say in the group exclaimed. Dusk even wondered how far away the town was, but she quickly realized that it was just a few blocks away when she saw the large brick building looming ahead. The clearly marked town hall was with white letters across one of the windows. "There it is, up there," Dean shared. The group all followed Dean cautiously into the building, and upon entering, Dusk saw that the building was nothing like that she had expected. She had presumed it was going to be a meager office building, but actually, the old Salem Town Hall was one of the bigger open space with larger pillars. The older wooden floors and the chandeliers gave the building a ballroom-like feeling to which Dusk had never expected. There were a few glass cases with a few various old documents with them, but Dusk admittedly didn't enjoy the museum-like places. This was not practically interest to her. She didn't want to be rude, but however, she still glanced at each other of the documents. She skimmed through the small pieces of paper, explained what the individual's documents meant, but quickly forgot everything they said a few moments due to her lack of interest. Dawn and Dayton glanced at each other of the documents with a great sense of curiosity in their eyes, so Dusk simply wandered around and reread some of the items in the glass case, wishing her friends were preoccupied. Dusk wanted to admit the building looked extremely cool, even if it wasn't quite her thing. After a period of time, it was probably just a few minutes, but it felt like forever to Dusk. Dean spoke to the group again. "Alright everybody, if we want to stay on track, we'll unfortunately have to move on to the old cemetery." Dusk was far a bit more excited to see the cemetery than she was at the old town hall. At least there would be some cool sights there. The old town hall was historic as well, just felt boring to fill her to her. The tourists all headed out of the town hall and followed Dean to the left. "There's been nearly 400 years of paranormal activity at this cemetery, which is nicknamed the Burying Point," Dean revealed. However, one of the most notable instances is that many people who have visited the cemetery late at night have seen the figure creepily elderly woman lurking in the shadows. Legend has it that she wore one of the fortunate victims taken at the witch trials. That's terrifying, a woman whom Dusk didn't know shrieked. More like cool, Dawn rebuked. I like this type of paranormal stuff. Within a few blocks, the group reached to the cemetery. Dean didn't provide any more facts immediately, but upon arriving at the cemetery, there was a feeling of sorrow and despair that washed across Dusk. Something about the cemetery was so sad, feeling a physical representation of all women who had their lives taken from a result of the horrific witch trials. Everyone walked around, glancing at each tombstone, without saying anything due to the strong atmospheric feeling of the place. Wow, it's almost eerie, Dawn whispered to Dusk. Yeah, this is much sadder than I expected, Dusk agreed. This is so barbaric, horrible, unconsensual, and just plain wrong, Kelsey cried out loud. Somebody needs to build a time machine and teach these judges about woman's lib. Dusk immediately found her outburst a bit inappropriate, but Kelsey didn't seem to be practically bright. If her earlier remark about being bored in the 1700s was anything to go off of this feeling was furthered by Kelsey saying uncoincidental, as the U.S. Constitution wouldn't even nearly exist for another 100 years before or after the trials. It didn't even practically seem like she was sharing her own thoughts. Her remark came off as a bit disingenuous, as if she was relegating that she thought it was supposed to say, rather than how she actually felt. As you could see, this is one of the places you'll have to let yourself experience, so I won't say much here, Dean somberly said, to which Dusk admittedly liked, due to how indirectly called out Kelsey's inappropriate comment. I'll let you have a few more moments here, but we're about out of time, and we should start heading back, folks. A few of the people took some pictures of the gravestones, but Dusk just wanted to sit there for a moment and let herself soak up at the scenery for a bit longer. It was a very somber feeling being forced to face with a large group of victims from the trial, and that made Dusk feel sadder and angrier than she ever had before thinking about the Salem trials. It had been a mile walk back to their vehicles, but they had sure returned safe and sound, and just as the sun was beginning to set for the night, something about being in Salem after dark felt equally cool and bore-fondling to Dusk, given all the supposed and supernatural activity here. Perhaps she had just let all the paranormal stuff get to her head, though. Thanks for coming on this tour, folks. It's been a pleasure showing you around, Dean smiled. Thanks for the tour, Dean, Dusk appreciated. A few of the others said thank you to Dean, but no one from her group of friend other than Ava and Dawn said anything to him. Alright, we'll see you all back at Brett's, Jonathan waved, as he and Kelsey got in Brett's vehicle. That was a pretty good tour. I'm really glad we went, Dusk exclaimed, as she got into the driver's seat again. Dawn and Dayton climbed in the back seat, with Ava climbed in the front seat. The directions were pretty fresh in Dusk's mind that she felt confident to start driving back. And she added the safety net of Dawn's written down directions so she would forget. You could say that again. I'm really glad I have finally seen Salem, Dawn responded. I've only lived here my entire life, and I barely left Oak Haven. It was about time that I explored. Honestly, it would be great if we do stuff like this more often as a group, Dayton chimed in. Yeah, I've always thought it was kind of corny meeting the park every week, Dawn said. We should really do more adventure stuff, like right here as a group. Most of us don't really hang out together outside of our meetings anyway, so it'll be a neat way to get to know each other. Hey, maybe we can even find a different meeting place? Somewhere a bit cooler? Like somewhere overlooks the whole city or a haunted house? Dayton daydreamed. As far as I know, Oak Haven doesn't really have places like that, Ava laughed. You know what I mean. Dayton rolled her eyes playfully. Someplace cool that people our age would actually hang out. Meeting at the park every week sounds like we're playing a bridge playing club for old ladies. We'll have to give some more thought into it though where we could meet. But yeah, I'm totally down for a meeting anywhere else, Dawn nodded. Man, we should really have Dusk join us a long time ago. We're doing more cool shit with her as a group than we ever done before. Dusk was so happy that she felt appreciated like this, even though she hadn't really done anything. Going with a few friends to take tours Salem was pretty amazing, unique experience that she never had would envisioned herself in partaking a week ago. And it was even cooler that the trip seemed to be allowing her to get closer with her new friends. Dusk had a feeling that this trip to Salem would be a special memory that she would never forget.